When it comes to tension on the Pfaff Performance 5.2 sewing machine, you're going to notice that it's kind of automatic. Now, let me caution you just a little bit. As you pick different stitches, you will notice that the tension area will have a number associated with that stitch, giving you what the machine recommends as a tension change that is recommended. Now, as you sew a straight stitch, usually you see about a 4.6. Now, what does that mean? That means that if the thread in the needle is the same as what's in the bobbin, then the stitch is going to be balanced. Now, as soon as you start to change those combinations, like you have a more fun or thicker thread in your needle and you have something different in your bobbin, well, this will be more of a starting point for tensions. As you notice from like a zigzag or a satin stitch, notice the tensions change dramatically. The top tension is reduced, so as we stitch, and what I'm going to do is just sew a little couple stitches and then let you see. I have variegated thread in the needle, and I also have just regular thread in my bobbin. So when the tension is reduced, you're going to see a nice stitch always on the top side. Because this has been loosened, that means that the bobbin is actually tighter than the top. So that's going to pull the top thread down to the back, guaranteeing that I see no bobbin thread on top. And that's really what I want. I want a nice, pretty stitch. When I'm doing like my decorative stitches, we will find that that tension, I'll just pick a random stitch, is usually in that reduced range. Now, you do notice how much thread is pulled to the back side here. Maybe I don't want as much pulled, so I might maybe take that tension and not be back at 4.6, kind of that normal setting, but I could come back at 3, and let me show you what that would look like. That there's a little bit less decorative thread being pulled around to the back side as we stitch. So let me just kind of give you a quick idea here. Now, when you change a tension for a stitch, you see that the number turns to a yellow number, meaning an altered number. Here we go. So here is the stitch that I sewed, and we see less of the top thread, a little bit more of the bobbin thread showing on the back side here. But if I was to go to the next stitch, so for example, if I'm sewing out my decorative stitches, do you notice that that tension goes back to the default setting for this stitch as I change? And if I go back to the stitch I was at, it also changes. So if you want to keep those settings, something you might do is reduce or add tension and then save that stitch and those settings into your personal program. And then that way that will be remembered next time you go and pick that stitch from the personal, that's the little heart area. So if we pick that stitch, you see that the settings are remembered at the reduced number. That's really nice. It also remembers like your width, your length, so whatever your favorite settings are for that stitch, maybe with the thread that you're using, that is a great place to utilize saving those settings and not having sticky notes all over your machine. So when you need to actually make something tighter, maybe the thread, or actually maybe you're seeing too much bobbin thread on top, then what we're going to do, and if we just kind of go back to a straight stitch, here we go, and we need to, let's see here, what did I say? Too much thread on the top, then we can reduce the tension. Now, here's one thing nice about this machine. Yes, they give us all these little increments, like 4.6 to 4.4, so that's hardly any change. So if you just touch this once or twice, you're not going to see a lot of difference. So if I am needing to actually change tension, I'm going to come down at least a whole number's worth, from 4.6 to 3.6, and then that way I can actually see, is it actually making a difference? Maybe tension's not my problem at all. Maybe I just have my machine threaded wrong, or I'm not in my bobbin tension. So down when you put your bobbin in the machine, are you actually getting it into the tension discs down below, or do you have any tension at the top? So make sure that you always are threading the machine correctly, you're using good quality thread that makes a ton of difference, and are you using the right needle for that thickness of thread that you've selected. So before you start changing tension all the way around, and if you know, make sure all your other settings are correct. Have you cleaned the machine? Has the machine been in for an annual service? All those things are going to make a difference because wear and tear on your machine and all the lint from those fabrics, they're going to make a difference. And if you can't remember if you make it tighter or looser, one is going to make it better and one is going to make it worse. So give it a try and don't be afraid to change your tensions. And when you turn it off and turn it back on, everything resets if you don't know what you've changed. So tension shouldn't be a problem, especially when you're using good quality threads. And if you need to adjust it, it's right at your fingertips.